Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Facing Big Change with a New Breed of BPM. This is a very special webinar. We're going to be doing things in this webinar that we've never done before, so I'm very excited. And I'm Ellie Stutz. I'm the Head of Knowledge and Collaboration for PNMsoft. And with me is our panelist today, Trevor Morton, CMO for PNMsoft. Hi, Trevor.
Yeah, hi Ellie. Good afternoon, everybody.
And actually, one of the first things we're going to do that we've never done is to show ourselves. So I'm going to turn on my webcam, and hopefully you should see me. Hello.
Hi, guys.
Okay, so that's the first change. This webinar actually is a lot about change, so we're going to be having several changes here. Just for the format of what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to be setting up big change versus BPM, and we'll see what that means in a second. We'll be introducing a hot change to kind of combat big change or to handle big change. We're going to be showing a demo of hot change, our unique technology here at PNMsoft, and we'll be interacting with you with questions and answers and more. But first, before we do anything, I'd like to show you something that dates all the way back to 1955, a short little clip, and let's all take a look at this. Okay. Well, that was hot change. I'm just kidding. What you've just seen is obviously a clip from a classic movie, Back to the Future, where a scientist, Doc, is trying to send his friend Marty from 1955 back into the future, which was in 1985, and he needs a bolt of lightning to do so. He spent 2 weeks planning it and setting up the cable up to the clock tower where he knew that the lightning would hit. And then at the last moment, right as the time machine, which is that car you saw, the DeLorean, is just about to drive through and get that bolt of lightning, that 1.21 gigawatts of power, and go back into the future, suddenly the wind, there's a storm, the cable breaks, and there's a big, a disaster is going to happen. The lightning's not going to come back, and Marty's not going to go back to the future. So Doc, even though he's planned for 2 weeks meticulously, so that this whole process is going to work, down to the nth detail, something unexpected happens, and he had to deal with that. He had to deal with that unexpected thing, and he did deal with it on the spot. He had ingenuity. He hooked himself up. He omega'd down the cable, and then he connected it right at the last second, and the result was that Marty goes back to the future. So he was able to deal with that unexpected event in an ingenious way on the spot. So that actually ties into something that we're going to really be dealing with a lot in today's webinar. So now I'm going to actually turn to you before I give you the answer. I'm going to ask you the question. So the question is, what is the biggest factor in the success of a business today? Okay, and what I'd like you to do, this is also something that we're trying out today for the first time, is I'd like you to answer a poll, which I'm going to launch now. And apparently when I launch it, my screen's going to go away, but you're going to actually see this poll. So I'm going to give you a minute to fill in the answer to this poll, and then please do so when I launch it, and then we'll come back to our screen. So here goes, hopefully something. Okay. So now you should be viewing this poll, and the question is, what is the biggest factor in the success of a business today? From what I recall, the answers are, actually, you know what, Trevor, what do you think the answer is while people fill out the poll?
Hi, Ellie. Well, I think I know what the answer is, with everything else is a commodity, but people are critical to an organisation. They are the USP, they are the differentiator, they provide service, they enable service. So it'd definitely be down to people as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, I mean, obviously people is you know, it's the human factor. It's a major factor. But if you have great people, is that enough? I mean, you know, you can have all the great people in the world, but if you don't have, let's say,
leadership,
yeah, exactly,
clarity,
a coherent direction or a strategy, then you're also kind of lost, even if you have all the skills in the world. So that could also be a candidate.
I agree with you entirely there, Ali. But I think without the right people, you won't achieve your corporate strategy. Plans don't get followed through, so on and so forth.
Okay. What about change? You know, Doc, he was the biggest scientist, and so he was the right person, and he had a strategy, and he had this whole plan. But then at the last minute, like very often in real life, something unexpected happened. So his ability to deal with change actually was the deciding factor. The fact that he was able to handle the change, you know, on the fly, that enabled Marty to go back in the future. And that also happens in a lot of business processes where you can plan and have the greatest people, but in the real world, the unexpected is always occurring. And, you know, so change, I think, that would be my candidate for the answer on the poll.
Fair enough.
Let's see. Okay, so I think we probably, okay, we have a few people have answered. Oh, wow, 74% have voted. Okay, well done, folks. If you haven't voted, I'll give you 5 more seconds. And, but I can already see where it's heading. It's fairly clear. Okay, we have 78% voted. Okay, a few more seconds to vote. And I think we're going to close. Oh, okay, still one more. 80%. Okay, that's whoa, 83%. You guys are really, okay, everyone's voting. This is great. I'll give you another 10, 15 seconds. We're adapting here. Okay. We have a really great demo coming up in this webinar. We're going to be actually seeing our unique hot change technology in action. So stay tuned for that. Okay, 85% voted. The rest of you are welcome to send your votes later. I'm going to close the poll. But, okay, so we're closing the poll, and now how do I show the results? Good question. Okay, maybe you're already seeing the results right now. Well, the results that I see on my screen are that an overwhelming majority of people have voted that it's the ability to adapt to change. Actually, it says oat change, so that's something that needs to be changed in the answer there. So the ability to adapt to change clearly is the winning one here, and I'm glad actually because that's the theme of this webinar. So let's really get back to that. The question is, can you now see my screen? Trevor, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so let's get back here. Okay, so at the end of the webinar, we're also going to be doing something we've never done, which is we're going to be inviting you online to share some short stories that you have about how you cope with change. So start thinking about that. Okay, Trevor, I'm going to hand this over to you now. Where were we as far as handling change in the past, and where are we today?
Hi, Ellie. I thought you were going to introduce Back to the Future to introduce me, so that was a relief when you didn't. So
can I call you Doc?
Please don't. Please
okay.
don't.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Ellie. Yeah, Ellie asked me just to put this little perspective together based on a little while in industry, as you can see. The observation here is quite simple. I started with Xerox back in the 1980s, where we were doing quality, the Deming and the Crosby methods of quality, and the sort of gravitas and the impetus behind change then was fairly low on the Richter scale, and I would say if we achieved anything, it might have been a 2% shift in the way we did things. 10 years or so later, the world was starting to change, open borders, so on and so forth, more global competition, and change was taking on more of a meaning by then in the 1990s. That carried on into the 2000s. I think in the 2000s, that's where we saw the turning point or the tipping point, whichever choice you prefer. By the 2000s, the internet had become quite pervasive in business, not so exclusively in the home. And that was a point where organizations like Amazon and others had started to define new models of customer service. So I've got a benchmark in my little diagram there of the initial 1 week when I was just doing UK-based things. That was when we could get a product or a service delivered nationally. By the 1990s, we were doing that same process globally. Amazon reset the model and are still the benchmark now of customer service, and through very smart processes, with not just all human-centric processes but automated processes. What else is driving change? It's at the midpoint in that diagram that the curve, if I was to draw a line across this page, would start going up. Factors like e-commerce, outsourcing, shared services, and of course regulatory and compliance forces on organizations started to drive up change big time. Okay, it was at that point things like Six Sigma and business transformation and Agile and Scrum, and of course intelligent business process management systems came to the fore. So my arrow is now pointing 2/3 of the way up the page. That final section on the right hand side is where we are now. We're facing what I call and what others call a nexus of forces. This is obviously things like ubiquitous and pervasive internet, mobility, digital business, cloud computing, big data, social and digitization. The world is changing, so now you and I can go to the internet and order something, and now that order can be expedited and processed and delivered in the hour. So there's massive forces coming to play now on organizations, and these forces, as I say, the nexus of forces are what we now call big change.
Okay, and big change, of course, is and nexus of forces those are both terms I believe that Gartner came up with in order to describe the state of change.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
the state of the business, the forces that govern business. So big change, what is that, and what's the challenge there?
What's the challenge there? Well, it's everything we've done over the last 10, 15, 20 years, but much more in a much more concerted effort in terms of the way those things are coming together. My view and Gartner's view going forward is that one-off standalone initiatives won't go the distance. Organizations will have to do what they've done with things like Six Sigma, but do it on a much wider federated basis, is build competencies across the organization that will go the distance. This is not just a one-off incident in time. I think the other thing that we've got to do as an organization is go for adopt a design for change mentality in the technology that we use, not just a built to last, but a design to change, Ellie.
Okay, excellent. So that really, thank you, Trevor. That really sets us up for what is big change. At least it gives us a picture of it. Now, okay, so big change. We're in the era of big change, and we all feel it. We all feel that things change. The demand for businesses to change is growing in order to compete. Is there a problem? Well, Gartner says there is a problem. What's the problem? I'm going to actually just click through to this infographic that Gartner loaded up recently. I just saw it recently on Twitter. And okay, so Gartner says that by 2015, 30% of BPI dollars will fund digital transformation projects. Okay, transformation to deal with big change. What's the problem? The problem is that over 70% of these initiatives fail to deliver, and that, of course, is a mine over there. And Gartner says that this is because there are various obstacles to big change. There's no organizational champion, no big change hero, not enough budget, not enough resources, politics. These are many of the obstacles. These are, Gartner's giving business people a mission here of ways to face big change, setting up predictive analytics, business activity monitoring, people-centric interactions, mobile platforms. Trevor, is this enough, or can you think of other things that organizations must do in order to face the challenge of big change?
As I just go back to my argument about, well, people-centric interactions, that's building teams, resourcing those teams, and empowering those teams to design and make and build and change on a daily basis as is needed.
Okay, fair enough. I would argue that yes, that, and I think that what is needed maybe primarily is a technology that can meet the challenge of big change, a new kind of technology. So, this is a quote actually from the Gartner newsroom that today's change is not just change; it's big change. It's a significant alteration. So it's change on a different order. It's disruptive. It's volatile. Everything is new and it's complex. So it's a challenge that kind of looks like this, like these Godzilla versus Bambi here. That's the magnitude we're talking about. And the question is, can business process management, can BPM handle this kind of enormous, these odds that are so kind of skewed? So let's find out. Let's see what let's see what one of the analysts thinks about that. This is actually Elise Golding. It's a blog post that she posted in April 2014, and the title is Introducing BPM Shift. BPM is dead. Long live big change. So, and then she explains why BPM, or at least classic BPM, cannot meet the challenge of big change. Trevor, is BPM dead?
It's not dead. I think it's just got to re-gear and recalibrate itself to the challenges of the next 10, 15, 20 years in terms of an environment, big change, and pretty much what we said earlier in terms about gearing up, in terms of teams of people, in terms of the right technology. It's going to be critical to preparing an organization for the era of big change.
Okay, I agree. I think that we're looking for a new kind of BPM technology. Maybe not just a technology. Maybe we need a technology and a methodology.
And a methodology.
I think that's really what we're leading to here. And at PNMsoft, we've been thinking about this problem for quite some time now. And we are introducing, or we have introduced, you may have seen this if you're familiar with PNMsoft, a new concept. Okay, and I'm going to illustrate this concept through an example. This is a problem for a water purification service system provider that I've created called Clearwater. They have a service request. They're actually a global company, but they have competitors. They have to stay competitive, and one of the things their competitors are doing is they've added mobile capabilities to their customer service, and they have and Clearwater also knows that their process is not efficient. Their service request process is not has bottlenecks somewhere, but they don't know where they are, so they have to add analytics. They've honed in on two factors they need to change right now in order to stay competitive. So you say, okay, what's the big deal? You've got a programming team. You make the service request form available on mobile phones. You add some analytics. What's the big deal? Okay, so the problems that Clearwater have are the following. They don't have a development team available at the moment. Their development team is on something else right now. They need it to be done very, very quickly. Okay, they've actually said it needs to be done in a week. And they can't derail their existing process. Okay, they have thousands or tens of thousands of users, and they can't take their customer service process down because it will just shut down their operation, so no downtime. So those three things are much more common than you would expect when it comes to change-related problems in technology. Okay, so how do they deal with this? So as I said, we've been thinking about this for a long time here. We've actually built our BPM suite sequence on a unique kind of technology which we call hot change. And hot change is a technology which I'm not going to read this to you. I'll look at the picture and I'll tell you what it means. Imagine that you're a race car driver and you're going around the track and you're competing with all the other race car drivers, and you know that you need to go into the pit to change your tires. But when you go into the pit, the problem is that you're not racing, and your competitors, the other cars, are just going past you. So wouldn't it be amazing if you could have that pit team change your tires while you're still driving without derailing the car? That's essentially what I've just said now is the concept behind hot change. It's giving companies the ability to change their processes as they continue to run in production without derailing them. So they don't take the process out, shut down the company for half a year, and then bring it back out of the pit, and then by then all their competitors are way ahead. we're giving them the tools to be able to modify their processes as they continue to run, okay? And as it says here, in the easiest possible manner, okay? And that's a key, easy, and also another element, which you'll see in a second, is the element of control, because between all of us, change is scary and change is risky. And if you change, if these guys change the tires while the car is running, the car might flip, or these guys might get, God forbid, run over. So change has to also come with control, and we'll see how that plays out. And what I'm going to do right now is we're going to go straight into the environment, and I'll show you what the service request process that Clearwater has looks like, and how one single business analyst was able to make those changes in an easy and controlled fashion and in a quick time. And let's go right then there to that. Just to give you a quick look, this is our end user environment. We call it Flow Time, and it's a SharePoint-based environment. It doesn't have to be in SharePoint, but the default is. And here, just to see what it looks, their service request process looks like, I'm going to just open up one. I'm starting a new process. It enables customer service agents at Clearwater to fill in the customer's details, and those are actually pulled in from their CRM. They get a map up. They can pull in the contact details, and that also comes from the CRM. And this is just a sequence process, and they fill in the details. New purification system, and so on and so forth. The priority. Okay, I'm not going to fill in everything here. And once they're done, they click submit, and then that goes on to some service agents who then can fetch this task and then deal with it, just to give you an idea of how the process works. And then they can add various actions and then submit that. And that goes through the organization through several levels of approval until the task is done. And that is actually a very smooth, well-oiled process that they're happy with, but they need to make those changes. Okay, so let's go as a business user, as the person who's been given this task. I've actually gone in and I've created for the purposes of this webinar, a slightly simpler version of that process, just to illustrate it to you, just to illustrate how quick it is to make these changes without derailing the process. Here's a simplified version with a request form. And the first thing I said is we need to create a mobile version of this form. Okay, so you think, okay, that's a week of programming. Well, the thing is, part of hot change in Sequence is that we've separated the view of the form from the data. And it's very easy to create a new view just by going up here for different devices. Just go to Views, New, and choose what kind of view you want to create. I want to create a mobile view. I'm just going to give it a name. Let's call it Mobile 5, whatever. And I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to just maybe modify the name here and call it request form. And that's it. That is the mobile view. And oh, maybe I can take off this over here. Then we'll just make it even user-friendly. Okay, but that's it. Sequence has, using the same data model for this form, Sequence has the ability, using hot change technology, to create different views. And here's the mobile view. So let's take a look. Let's go into Process to Go, which is the mobile portal of Sequence. And let's see how that looks, okay? It's going to take a few seconds to load. I think what I'm going to do while it's loading, and this is just because this is our cloud demo environment, so I'm going to go back to it in a second. Let's go back to that in 1 second. I'm going to do one more thing, one more change. They actually, the head of Clearwater came into my office right now and said, oh, you know what? We need to change a business rule. Can you also change that? Oh, sure, no problem, the business user says. Here's a business rule. This rule governs if the request goes to a manager for approval first. Here is the rule. And let's just edit it. You need the CEO is right, standing over my shoulder here. It's going to edit that rule, and he needs the cost to just be actually a little bit higher before we actually send that to that manager. Too many requests are going to the manager. That's the edit. You can even validate it. and next, and save. And there's the new rule. And now that rule has actually taken effect immediately, as in that rule takes effect immediately on processes that are running in production. Sounds scary? It is a little bit scary, and we'll give you some other options in a second. Let's take a look at that mobile environment. Okay, here we are. And let's create, this is the mobile portal. You saw the runtime portal earlier, which I called flow time. This is called process to go. And this enables workers in the field, or anyone on a mobile device, to manage, end users, to manage processes on any mobile device. Okay, so it shows their inbox items, their tasks that they need to complete, and they can even kick off a new process here. So customer service agent, let me just log in. Second. A customer service agent, it's very secure, so you need to log in. A customer service agent can kick off this process. Now here's actually that form which I showed you just now that I just created, called the service request, and simple and presto. There it is. It's the same form, but it is optimized for a mobile device, and it took me literally less than a minute to create. So, and I'll just show you actually the real service request process, which was just a little more advanced. That also is here, and there you can actually even see that we've got a map integrated here, and it works the same way as the PC version, and enables workers to do, agents to fill in requests while they're in the field, which is actually, we're seeing more and more and more and more of this with our customers, where we have customers who they must have a mobile process available. We have a major roads management customer that manages maintenance on roads that they can't do the process on PC because their agents are in the field. So they really must have this version of the process. Just because we're here in the mobile, there's several other neat little features where you can actually see dashboards in mobile, and this can also help especially managers who are using mobile. So, okay, task number 1, done. We got the mobile form there, and let's just minimize that. We modified a business rule. You can do anything to the workflow. I could add more activities. I could potentially change the flow of the workflow. Now, you shouldn't change the flow if you don't know what you're doing, especially if the process is already running in production. So you do have to know what you're doing. But I could do many, 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 many things to, while the process continues to run. I just added another activity here, and that takes effect immediately. Okay. What about the analytics? So we have a new feature, which you may have seen in actually our last webinar, called Sequence Analytics. And this enables you to design very, very rich and powerful and informative end-user dashboards, like charts and gauges, on the design end. So I've actually started to design this dashboard here. I call it Water Service Analysis, but I could, let's start actually a new one just very quickly. Even though we did demonstrate this last time, we'll just call it Water Service Management Dashboard. And I'm not going to go through the whole step. You can look at our last webinar just to see more. But this is a wizard which enables the business user to select whatever data he wants from the process. Okay, I'm just selecting the data fields that I'm interested in, and these are the data fields upon which the dashboards are based. And I may as well just select several here. It's important to actually select the workflow ID, the workflow instance ID, so we can count the number of instances. You can add filters, what data you don't want to see. You can add, you can enable the end users to filter the display according to a specific field. That's what the dimensions here are. So you can add a field or fields that you want to enable them to filter the display according to, let's say according to region, according to the date, and so on. You can actually add gauges, which we call KPI. And let's just call this KPI, let's call this the cost of service KPI. Okay, that's just the name. And here I can create ranges for those very pretty kind of speedometer gauges. We have to select actually a column, let's say the cost. Okay, the cost of service, and then we can add ranges here for what high cost. So I guess we maybe start with low cost, and that would be like greenish. And then I can add. This is like the. Okay, here we go. That would be level 2. This is medium, and another range is here. This would be the higher cost, and so on. Okay, and that saves us right away. And then, of course, we can define the visuals. We can add a chart with whatever. We can slice the data according to X and Y axis. We can choose the format. Let's say I want to count number of processes by region. So I would choose region up here in the X-axis, and unformatted is fine in this case. I would do that by the number of instances, and then I can choose the subtype of visual that I want. That's my first visual. I can add a gauge. I could add a list, and again, I don't want to go too deeply. You can see this in the last webinar. And then you just go to, you can export this to your PC, and you can publish it. You can choose the format that you want and the visuals that you created, and then just click publish. And that uses the SSRS, and it publishes it to the flow time. So you're actually leveraging database data and SSRS, and you're surfacing that onto the end user flow time, which is actually something which is also very unique. Let's take a look at what that looks like now that the business user has done those two things now. This is what the management dashboard looks like now. He's got number of service calls per customer, the request priority, request types, service requests in a list form. So, and then of course the ability to filter that data for the end user according to priority and so on and so forth. So that is what it looks like for the end user. So hold on a second. Let's go back to the requirements. I think we're good. We enabled mobile. We added analytics. We even did a few more things. And that's just a small part of Hot Change. I'm not going to show you these in detail, but I wanted to just mention that there are many other things that you can do that would ordinarily take a whole programming team a month to do. You can do them very quickly. You can add integration activities with external systems, with Dynamic CRM, with SAP. You can, with SharePoint, and they're wizard-based. Let's say you want to create a list item in SharePoint from the service request. Let's say you have another portal in SharePoint. It's very easy. It's wizard-based. Use an existing SharePoint connection. Next, and then you just define the bindings between the data from your process and the SharePoint columns very, 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 very easily, and that's it. So essentially, integration wizards, that's part of Hot Change. Dynamic reassignment for end users. When an end user has a task open, let's just open a task here as part of the process. Let's do this quickly. So the point here is that Hot Change is not just for the designers. Okay, it's not just to enable designers to make changes. It's also for the end users. So, and that's because changes happen for end users that they need to deal with on the fly. Okay, so it's not. So it's kind of on both ends. And here, if let's say this goes to an agent and he can't deal with this task, so he can then reassign it using this little button here, dynamic reassignment during runtime. He wants to, let's say, remove himself and add another agent. So he can just easily add her. Maybe he can add 2 if he wants, and then close it, and then OK. and now it's assigned to these two agents. It's reassigned, okay? So then they can fetch the task and they can deal with it. So that's the idea of hot change in runtime. And another little thing that I really would like to show you, because I am here in runtime, is that you can see, agents can see where the process is, where it stands, what its status is while it's going on. And that's another very, very important thing, exposing that visibility to agents. Here, it's here. That's where it is. But you can see where it is and where it's stuck. And giving that visibility enables you to handle problems that come up, that inevitably will come up due to real-life conditions. And okay, now, as I was talking, you were getting nervous. Why were you getting nervous? Because change is scary, and it's not just scary. It can be risky. It's risky to change a live process. So, what do we give you? What tools do we give you to mitigate that risk or to control the level of the immediacy of change? So we have many tools like that. That's actually, I'll just show you this. I'll just jump to this slide for a second. We have an entire control layer, okay, around hot change, which enables you to control the immediacy of change, the level of change, who gets to change things. I'm just going to show you one prime example of this, and that is version control. Okay, that enables you to, let's say you don't want to make a change on a live process. So what do? So you can create multiple versions of the process. I've already created one here very easily. Here in the administration environment, you just do version management, and you can create a new version of the process, version, let's say, call it C, and yes, I'm sure. And we count to 5. There we go. And now we have a new version of the process, version C. I'm going to keep my version A as the active version. Now I can make edits on any of these versions. Let's say version C is not active right now. It's not being used by new instances. I can make edits on this version, and they don't take effect immediately. Okay, when I'm ready, when I've made some edits, I've changed some business rules, I've added mobile, done this and that, all the things we need. So then I can go back, and then I can make this version active when I'm ready, when I've debugged it. We have a debugging tool, which maybe we'll show that in the next webinar. Set it as active workflow. Now C is active, but only after I'm ready for that. So that's actually the second level. I'm actually going to show this here. So we have immediate change, which is changing processes simultaneously, giving them the green light. Then we have version level change, so change an offline version, then activate it. And then level 3, which may be appropriate for many projects, especially in cases where stability is of prime importance and you have more time. You can make your changes on a separate environment, on the development environment, and then you can easily move your process. You can package it up and move it from one environment to another, and then you can make it active. And that also is very simple within the administration interface here. If I go into version management, I can create a workflow package and then very simple wizard that exports to a zip file, and I can download that, and then that's already done. Here it is. I can download it as a zip file to my machine. There it is, just a regular download. And then when I'm done, I can let's say now I go into my production environment. I was in my testing environment. Now it's tested, it's ready. I can go back here into my production environment, and then I can import that package as a new version, or I could overwrite the current version. I have those options here. I just go to my computer, I browse, and I import it, and I've done quick change, hot change, but in a more controlled manner. So we try to make all the options available. Another level of control, just very quickly, that we offer here that enables a team to control changes, to oversee changes, is here within the App Studio. Let's find that. We have the ability to manage, to collaborate, okay? And that means you can be working in a team. You can see who's checked out which activity, okay? You can have 5 different people working on this one process where each of them has checked out a different activity, and you know they're working on it, and then they can check it in. So these tools are another level of control which we provide. So change is scary, but we try to provide all the control you need in order to do change in a controlled way where you mitigate your risk and you maximize your benefit. So that wraps up the demo, and I think what I'd like to encourage you now to do, talked about that, talked about, okay, I'll talk about this for a second. If we have time, just take a look at the clock. What I encourage you to do is to think very, very, very hard right now about, A, if you have any questions, and please ask them, start asking them in the questions widget of the GoToWebinar. And we will answer them towards the end. So just go on your right side and go to webinar and enter some questions that you might have about hot change. And even better than that, we're looking for someone in the last few minutes of the webinar to talk about, very quickly, to bring up how they handled a change challenge. Okay, so I actually see that we have a hand up somewhere, maybe even from early on in the webinar. Okay, just you can do that. Either send me a chat message or in the GoToWebinar widget, or put your hand up again, and we'll bring you up on the air towards the end. Okay, so I think I'm gonna, for the purposes of time, I'm just going to do this very quickly. A lot of people ask me, okay, how does it work? Let's say you have different versions of the process, and so how does it, you know, let's say you have a live instance running. Let's say you have a process that takes a few days to complete, or even longer, a few weeks. Let's say I make a change now in the design environment. Let's say I have 2 versions, and I made a change in one, I did in the other. How does it work? Okay, so the way it works is like this. If you make an immediate change, the first kind I talked about, that takes effect right away on a process instance that's already live, okay, and also new ones, of course. But you can decide which people or departments see which versions or use which versions of the process. So a process, now look at rule number 2 is actually key, and this is something that we may change in the future, but at the moment we may keep just for, you know, to maintain some level of control in governments. A process which you've started on one version, a process instance which you've started on one version of the process, will continue on that version. You can't take an instance and move it to a second version while it's already running, because that may be a little bit too radical and a little too risky, okay? Because who knows what could happen. Let's say you're in the middle of the process, the second version doesn't even have an activity, and you just switch it. That may be too risky. If you have 2 versions and you've now made the second version active, new processes will run on that new active version. But you can each version has a URL to it. So if you want, let's say you have an end user portal, you can let's say you have one portal for Europe and another portal for North America. You can give the North Americans one version of the process to start and the Europeans a second version of the process to start. So you can decide who starts which version, or who uses which process version. So there's a lot of control there. So that I get asked that a lot. Now let's take a look at this. Trevor, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay. So what did you think? I mean, what's your impression so far? Are you ready to jump into hot change?
Absolutely, yeah. I was just thinking back to last week, Ellie, at the European Business Analyst Conference, and the number of them that are shouting and screaming for this kind of solution.
Okay. So I'm glad at least you're impressed. Okay.
In fact,
so
I blogged on it at the weekend. So.
That's true. I really enjoyed that blog post. I encourage people to visit PNMsoft.com and take a look at that. Okay, what happens with and without hot change? Okay, so let's say you have 10 changes a year in a long-running process. So with hot change, as we know, you can do all those changes on one version of the process. Without hot change, you may need to have 10 active business process applications. Okay, let's say that you have 100 different processes that are like this. So with hot change, you have 100 processes. Without hot change, you would then need 1,000. 10 times 100, so you need 1,000. Now let's say that you have these processes need to work on 4 different types of devices. So we saw that in hot change, you can really have the same data, the same process, and you just create different views. So you still have 100 processes, but without hot change, you have 4,000 now. Okay, so this is already getting too many to manage. Let's say you have to have it work in 5 different languages. You're a global company. With hot change, you still have 100. Okay, and without hot change, you're looking at 20,000 different active business process applications required, and clearly that's something which even a very large and well-ordered company would have a very hard time to handle. So, and that actually brings us to the sweet spot here of hot change, which is, we're talking, hot change is the most effective and most beneficial for companies that have the highest frequency of change and who have human-centric processes. You might be asking why. Why is it, okay, I understand high frequency of change, that's the sweet spot. Why does it make sense for companies that have human-centric processes? Trevor, do you have any ideas? I got you there. You were.
Yes, I'm here because a sequence is usable by human beings, but you don't have to be a technical specialist to use it, as I saw last week.
That, and I think also, that of course, and also I think that human beings are, I think, more vulnerable to changes and more able to make changes, more able to themselves make change as opposed to machines or systems. So that puts the human and frequency of change as the area of the hot change sweet spot. I'm not going to. We had a webinar last year about evolutionary BPM. I mentioned that adapting to change, facing the challenge of big change, is not just about a technology. Okay, it's also about a methodology that can put this technology into use. So we've come up with a special methodology. We call it Evolutionary BPM Software Development Approach, Evo BPM for short, and it's modeled around the agile concept framework for software development. And the idea is that teams are creating processes quickly using hot change, and then in an iterative way, they're improving them. So they're not planning for 2 years and then coming up with finally a process. They're coming up with a process very quickly, rapid time to solution, within a few weeks even. And then that already is giving the business something they can use. That's already benefiting the business. And then they are improving it in iterative cycles, like an agile approach, but we're adapting that to BPM, and that's what we call evolutionary BPM. We're evolving the process as we go along. And the hot change is what enables that, because if you didn't have hot change, you wouldn't be able to make these iterative changes as you go along. You wouldn't be able to, and without sequence, you wouldn't be able to get that time to solution shift so fast. And our partner Bruce Hardy really told that story very well in our webinar last year. Now, I want to give you, before we get to the questions and to a story or two from you, I want to throw something at you, which is not something I've said up until now, but something that we're thinking about and that you can also think about together with us into the future. So all the way up until now I was talking about the fact that we're giving people a technology that enables them to change things. They can change, we're giving them the tools to adapt their own technology, their systems to change. That's one direction. That's people changing technology. There's another direction. There's technology that changes the way that people work. Okay, that's a second direction of change. And that's technology that changes people. Why would we want to do that? I said that to my wife yesterday, and she literally looked at me and she was scared. And she said, why would technology change people? I sound scared. We're not changing personalities exactly. We're changing the way people work. We're modifying behavior. Why should we modify behavior? Well, the reason is that many behaviors in organizations are causing the business to suffer, and the behaviors need to be improved. And the idea is that we're creating a technology that enables you to change the way that people work, to modify the behavior of the people in the company. How does it do this? Because the technology is so easy to use, so intuitive, so human-oriented, that it guides the people towards changing the way they actually work. And that's a two-way change, and that, my friends, is what leads to true business transformation, the two-way change. And that actually, this is actually the logo for Sequence, our BPM suite, it's two-way change. Okay, it's technology, it's people changing technology, and it's technology that changes people. Okay, so now we go to you. We have 10 minutes left. Let's just go straight to your questions. Either please ask us anything about that you've seen or that you thought of during the webinar. We want to hear from you right now. Or put up your hand. Okay, I see some hands here. Let's see if we have any questions. Okay, we have some questions. Now, how do I look at this in big? Okay, we have a few here. Just read off the questions first. Yes, John, the presentation is available to download. Ilya is asking, when you change a process, not a business rule in it, does this change influence running instances of the process? Double question mark. I guess you're concerned. The answer is yes. Yes, that's the immediate level of change, and you don't have to do that, but you can do that. Okay, you can actually change anything that has to do with the process. Okay, not just the business rule that actually influences running instances, and you need to be careful if you do that, because let's say you take out an activity that's the next step along the way, so the process can get stuck. You have to know what you're doing. Okay, so you might not. That might be something you do if you either know what you're doing or you have a very, very critical change that must be made, and you check it out first and then you do it. Rupert is asking, do I need to be running SharePoint Enterprise to get the benefit? We have only SharePoint Basic. Good question. I believe that we support SharePoint Server, SharePoint Foundation, but don't hold me to that. We will get back to you. Someone will get back to you after the webinar with the exact details. But in general, I think we recommend the enterprise, this SharePoint server, the level of SharePoint, but we may even be able to use it with foundation level, and we'll definitely get back to you. I do see one hand up. Let's see whose hands are raised. Bruce. Okay. Now here's where we get to the new innovation part of the webinar, and I'm going to unmute you, Bruce. I hope you're still with us. Oh, sorry, Bruce. You need to enter your audio pin. We've sent you an audio pin. Please enter it, and then you will be on air. Okay? If anyone else is interested in telling a change anecdote, please limit it to about a minute or so. Then you can raise your hand now in the GoToWebinar widget, and we will all hear it and see how you dealt with it. Or you can always ask any more questions that you have. Okay, let's see. Sent another audio pin. Bruce, please enter that pin in. Otherwise, we won't be able to put you up on the air.
Ellie, while we're waiting for Bruce, can we just talk about what the other webinars we've got coming up between now and Christmas?
Good idea. Trevor, please. What do we have?
Well, we have, for those of you that are new to PNMsoft, you might be pleased to know if you're a dynamic CRM user, we have an integration of PNMsoft Sequence with Microsoft Dynamics CRM, enabling you to create new levels of functionality for CRM users that would otherwise be very, very difficult to create with CRM off the shelf. So that's hot on the agenda. Obviously, one of the key features of Sequence is its ability to integrate with other platforms. So if you're a CRM user, then you'll see how you can extend the reach of dynamic CRM users by enabling them to work with other platforms. And there's one or two more between now and Christmas. I think, Ellie, you're going to point us to the schedule for that, or we'll send it out after this webinar.
We will send it out, Trevor, and all the webinars are available on our website, PNMsoft.com, under Resources, Webinars, and that's our current webinar from today. And after we finish the webinar, we put an on-demand version up on this page, so you can. It's actually on our YouTube channel. But we embedded onto this page, so you can watch all of our webinars here. And if you're a PNFsoft customer or partner, then you can also enjoy the webinars and more resources about hot chains and Sequence on our very extensive Knowledge Center. Okay, let's just take a look if we have any more questions or hands up. Okay. I think that is it. So, Trevor, I want to thank you very much for being with us today, being our great panelist, and I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for tuning into this webinar, and I look forward to the next webinar with you, Trevor. And thanks all very much. And again, you can if you missed part of the webinar or you want to send it to a colleague, just send them to this page, and that's it. So thank you very much all. All the best.
Thank you.
Okay, let's end it. Bye.